might do something like that just to illustrate a bigger point. But in terms of the things that I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this in sort of two parts. Part one of my demonstration is going to address a more, I'll call it, traditional approach to learning piano from a beginning stage. And then part two of my presentation will be to focus on a less traditional approach that might involve more of a, what we would call playing by ear, or improvising, or a bit of composing. And that's something that's not limited to more mature minds, but I'll say with both of these approaches, if you're an adult beginner, I think these would work for you, or if you are an adult thinking about lessons for your child, then I'm speaking to that approach as well. Okay, and I do have a kid of my own. He is in fact 7 years old as of today. So I enjoy making connections with young people in that respect. Okay, so like I said, the first thing I'm going to do for a few minutes is show you a slightly more traditional approach to making music on the piano. Because I don't want to keep sort of grabbing the iPad that I'm using to talk through here, which will get kind of shaky. Maybe in a more intimate teaching situation, I would be moving around more in order to show people exactly how to put their hands on the keys and such. So I'll do a bit of that, but not as much as I might do in a normal lesson situation. I want to show you some of my teaching tools. I have a few different books that I'm just going to flash in front of you, give you a sense. This is my most often used book called the John Thompson Modern Course for Piano. You can see that the price tag says it's $1, and that's because this is a very old book, and this is an old copy of the book. This one's actually from around 1940. And there's some notes that have that date in it. But this is a classic good book for a traditional situation for either a youngster or an adult who wants to learn a more traditional or the basic approach to piano. And I will play something out of it in a moment. One thing I want to show you that's neat about it is that it has some very sort of helpful pictures, for example, that nowadays are very nice when we can't be in the room together. So showing someone on the keyboard where to put their fingers and such. So I'll come back to that idea in a moment. But that's sort of one of the approaches that I have. And of course, as you can see, this is dedicated to teaching music through the kind of traditional notated method. Okay. So another one of my teaching books would be something like this, that of course, what does it say? Classical Themes by the Masters. So that's kind of a lofty title these days. But there are some well-known tunes in here. This is also set up to be, I would hope that most people know this tune, by the way, but if not, that's okay too. This is meant to be these are fairly simplified versions of some well-known classical pieces. So again, for people who are interested in connecting more with classical music, or if you want your kids to start to get to know it, a book like this is a good place to start because it's fairly simple. And then last thing I'll show you before I make some noise here, just another kind of popular publisher, the Faber and Faber. And you could probably get a sense from this cover that it's for beginners or younger folks, but not exclusively younger folks. The 5-finger method, meaning that the hand doesn't have to move around a lot. So this is meant to be easy. And the song I have queued up here to show you a little bit of is the Chim Chim Cheree from Mary Poppins. So these are some of the kinds of more traditional books that I might use with students depending on what their specific interests are. Now, one more important thing I got to show you. Metronome here, something that sets the pace, sets the click, keeps the beat. And this is one of the things that I encourage even early on in teaching, is for not just for people to learn how to play their notes and how to do reading if that's what's important to them, but to appreciate how equally important rhythm in music is. Okay, so I'll probably say more about that in a few minutes as well. In any case, just to give you an idea of how I might introduce music reading to somebody, I'll first go back to this oldest book, the John Thompson Method. Each of the pieces in this, which is 1 or 2 pages long, it goes from piece number 1. This finishes on piece number 50. So there are 50 in this book, and then there's level 2, right? They go up and up and up. But each piece is meant to show somebody something new or focus on a particular technique. But what I would be doing with somebody is just what we see in this picture. And actually, I would do this with any situation, not just this book. I would ask that they get their fingers set up on our keys, and I would be showing somebody what the notes on the piano are. But more importantly, I would have their hands oriented in this kind of a way, and I'd probably mark down somewhere on like this diagram, if it were their book or a photocopy or something, that we number our fingers. There, thumb is number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The pinky is 5. And so while we do teach how to read notes, we also go along and teach numbers at the same time. So one more thing I want to show you here. And all of the books I showed you do this, but I didn't bring it to your attention then. Cute sticker, by the way, right? Halloween's around the corner. I hope people can see this, that in addition to the notes, which are the sort of, that's a whole project to get to know those. But in addition to the notes, you see numbers, right? The number here, numbers here and such. And so those coincide with the fingers. And so for people who are at the very beginning stages, it's usually a lot easier to read numbers than to read notes. So while I want to help people along with notes, in order to get them to make some music a little more efficiently and feel some satisfaction in that, I have them look at the numbers. And so positioning their hands properly, doing a little bit about counting, we would get a tune that sounds like this. This could be the first song that somebody's learning. And that might sound very simple, but there can be many challenges in a newcomer in working out the coordination of the hands, to understanding which way up versus down is when we talk about music, and making a connection with what's on the page to how it's supposed to sound. And the way I played it was fairly smooth, so there are also some issues of rhythm, and I'll show you that in a second. But this could be the kind of example that could take a week or two, or 2 or 3 lessons, perhaps, for someone to start to get comfortable with it. And then the next ones might seem a little bit easier. But that's the kind of sound we'd be going for. Depending on who it is, I would then want to introduce our friend, the metronome. And that's, of course, supposed to help us stay on the beat, following things in time. So I'll do this again. And I'm going to try to stay in time here. All right, so I'll congratulate myself on that. But what I would want to emphasize here is that for some folks, doing something with a smooth rhythm, keeping in time, can also be a challenge, and we want to address that carefully and sensitively. So I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to intentionally play some wrong notes, and it ought to sound a little funny. But what I am going to try to do is remain in time, and this is something I sometimes encourage in people, so that they don't overemphasize just learning the notes, but learning how to do things with a good rhythm. So let's see. Oops. Sounds kind of bad, right? So I intentionally messed up the tune, but I maintained the rhythm. And that's a kind of thing that I sometimes encourage with people, because I also find with students that have had prior experience that their counting and their timing might not be very well prioritized. And they think that just playing the right notes is all that matters in music. So I like to bring in that kind of balance, okay? Now, just to show you with something different, so I don't want you to think that there's just one book that everybody has to work out of. If I were to work out of the classic book, as we call it, that has the classical themes, here's this Ode to Joy theme. I just want you to, I'll play through part of it so you get a sense of how simple this version is. I guess I should turn this on, put my money where my mouth is, and then I'll turn it off though. I'll stop there. What I would also do with people is gradually make the metronome faster and faster as a way to develop skill and proficiency in a careful way. But there'll be other times when we don't want to hear this thing clicking in our ears and making us nervous or distracting us, and then we can do it without it. And in a case like this, I would also be concerned with somebody doing two hands together, and to make sure that that's not a challenge in and of itself. And a tune like this works very effectively just with the right hand. And so on. So that's just another way to adjust how the lessons are going, depending on who it is and what that person's challenges are or difficulties. Because sometimes getting a two-hand coordination process organized is just more difficult for certain people. So that's just something I'm going to be aware of when I'm working with a student. And then just very briefly, while I'm showing you 3 different books that I use, there are plenty of other books that sort of use different types of music or different examples. So this is something that's slightly more popular, but I guess still old-fashioned in some people's minds. So there's no reason why we can't use other songs or tunes that are familiar to the student, which are then going to be more exciting to learn. So I never like to push something down somebody's throat if that's not the kind of music they're into. There are plenty of types of music where we can do piano or other music lessons at an elementary level. So with this one too, it's got finger numbers and such that I can follow, and tells me where to place my fingers and hands and such. I'll stop that one there. Another thing I might bring up to people is, because I enjoy music theory and composition, is when I play a song like this, Chim Chim Cheree, I might ask about the mood or the feeling of the music as compared to the Ode to Joy example. I would try to point out that maybe that one sounds more joyous, happy, and technically speaking, that's in a major key of C major. Whereas this example of Chim Chim Cheree, and that's in a minor key, and we would talk about how that might feel different, or if there are different emotional associations with that. So I'm going to switch gears to show you some of the other stuff that I do that's not more traditional reading oriented, just because we have a tiny bit of time left. I was going to take a moment here, take a beat, as we say, to see if there were any specific questions about stuff that I just went over before I move on to my other quick demo. If I don't know if Julie is fielding any questions.
I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I don't see anything just yet.
Fine. Okay, then I'll just switch it up here. When I'm working with people that are less interested in that kind of traditional approach, or perhaps they have some experience in that side of doing music already, but they want to do something that's more learning by ear without as much reading, or they want to involve improvisation, which could lead to composition, perhaps. I do get folks involved in a little bit of music theory, which they usually wind up knowing anyway because they've played some scales before. In fact, this is going to be a moment where I hopefully don't drop the camera, but I do want to just get a better view for you of like how we just understand like scales. So I'm playing, that's a C major scale from C to C, and I can just say that these are the white notes, is another way to put it more casually. And I can use just that set of notes to get people going on some improvisation exercises. So one kind of improvisation exercise I get people into is where I have them do like some very simple chord shapes. And this is when we play multiple notes at once. I'm playing a C chord and then an F major chord. And I want to have people develop some basic left hand and right hand coordination. It's usually the right hand, the higher stuff, that's doing something more melodic, right? So I'll try to get them involved in like maybe a simple pattern like that. This is a more kind of groovy sound, more of a modern feel. And because we're just working with white notes, there's no wrong note. I'll just sort of play some random white notes. And even developing this kind of coordination can take a little bit. And I'm still going to encourage smoothness, evenness. I'd probably turn on the metronome, but I know it's a little annoying to hear it clicking while we do this. But that, maybe just for a second, so someone would know what it's like in a lesson. And what I'm doing now is just some very sort of simple basic things, but in the right hand. The left hand is being repetitive. And I try to gradually introduce like a patterned way of thinking with making the right hand, the melody provider, more free and independent and interesting, right? So one note every 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and then maybe 2 notes. And I tell people to try to limit it to that. Limitations are very important as we develop skills in improvising. So someone might feel the urge to do more, to do stuff like that. But that can get a little carried away, and then the person isn't is able to control what they're doing. It becomes more impulsive, which is sometimes nice, but to develop the skill of controlling what someone's doing, and again, there's also a pretty even rhythm here. And then I might say, try to play 3 notes in a single gesture. And then I'll say, make sure you repeat a note. different little miniature exercises that one can develop while keeping a steady pattern in one hand and gradually increasing the complexity of what's going on in the other hand. And it lets them think about what they're doing logically when we have these limited instructions: play 2 notes, play 3 notes only. Let's think of how about 4 notes, right? We'll just build onto this. I'll stick with this major key pattern. And in what I've just been doing, the rhythm there is very even and consistent in my right hand. So I'll try to do something that has a different rhythmic feel in this hand. The left hand's going to stay the same for this exercise. Let's see. Now I'm doing notes more often. Or I might get someone to do arpeggios. This will be, I think, probably the last example or so that I do. And this is more challenging. Like even that could take a week to learn, but then someone has those kinds of skills built in. That could turn into something more elaborate like this down the road. So that becomes one kind of a more natural passage that somebody could throw into their improvising. I could do something similar with more of a minor key feeling. So I like doing simple chord patterns in the left hand, and then gradual right hand improvisation development that has an aspect of organization to it. And so that allows people to bit by bit develop independence between the hands or cooperation between the hands, and to be in touch with their ideas on a sort of intellectual level. So again, that's a kind of approach for people that don't want to be reading music all the time and who have a bit of skill already, although it doesn't take long to do some of those beginning kinds of exercises. I'm looking at our clock and it looks like I should be winding it down. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Jono, this has been so helpful, I think, to hear sort of the approach, both from a music reading side, as well as, a really strong ear training approach. Is there, I think before we wrap up, and I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but is there any one piece of advice you would give to someone who is starting off music lessons in a virtual environment?
Let's see. I would want them to get a metronome, whatever the instrument is.
Yeah.
I would say that be ready to make a lot of mistakes and to play some sour sounding notes now and again, or maybe more often. That's okay. What you're going to get from me, and I know from all of my colleagues on the faculty, is just a lot of support and encouragement, and that to be a musician, as it were, just means to participate in music on all these levels, and to savor the mistakes, if we want to call them that, but it's often the only way to truly learn something is also to know how to do it wrong before you get it right. So I think especially when we're not as connected to one another in this virtual context, it could be easier to become frustrated quickly and to sort of disconnect, right? Because there's not another person in the room there to kind of give you that immediate warmth and support and sense of connection and so on. So that might need to be something that you have to bring more from within, or if you're a younger person and your parents are involved, that they are aware of providing that extra kind of support and to not put too much pressure on somebody to succeed too quickly. Yeah. So especially in this virtual situation, as I would say, we want to downshift a little bit in order to keep moving smoothly.
I think that's really great advice, Jono. Yeah, we all have to be super patient with ourselves in this very unusual time. So I want to thank you. Thank you, Jono, for giving us this insight to music learning and to piano learning. I just want to remind everybody here today that we have some wonderful, wonderful faculty members who teach piano. Jono, of course, but an amazing group of faculty members. You can read about them on our website. And we really encourage you, if you're new to CMC, this is a great time to join us. We have a special for our new students. We're waiving our registration fees. And if you are a returning student and you refer someone to us, you do get a 20% discount on your lesson. So please, please, we encourage you, make an appointment with our registrars. It's really easy. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and you can register all throughout the quarter, but we want to encourage you today to please do that. And I have noticed, by the way, that there are some little ones in this session, and in just a couple of minutes we're going to be starting our music for children class with Mr. Daniel, who is fantastic. It's really going to be fun and interactive, so please join us over there. We are going to have a great time, and of course we want to thank you all again for being here, for supporting CMC, for being part of our community, and just know that we value you being in our community every day. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Jono. It was great to see you. And take care, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.